Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Ewan Rutledge. I am GEO 004, and I'm here to tell you a short bit, including a full flight, about GEO Airlines domestic operation. Ignore that. That would be the sound of the pneumatic transfer unit. This is, I'll talk about the aircraft first. This is the Project Airbus A319 with IAE power plants fitted. There we are. The aircraft is using a sound pack by Sky High Sound Simulations, Sky High Audio Simulations, and the panel is by Ken Mitchell. I am a FS9 pilot. My knowledge of correct FMC use is limited. As such, my flying methods may not be as conventional as they would be to any other pilot. The more fastidious virtual pilots in the flying community are more than handy at operating FMCs, you know, sticking in SIDs and stars and what have you. Personally, that's not for me. I've tried to get into it and failed numerous times. Can't be helped. So, what you're about to see is a GEO Airlines BlueSkies, which is the domestic subsidiary of the virtual airline of which I'm a director for. My main job in the VA is aircraft design, so liveries, and social media, which is primarily the reason why I'm doing this video. The concept behind GEO BlueSkies, which actually see the livery there, the concept behind the domestic subsidiary is to offer pilots who would prefer short haul 1 hour flights. Have to excuse my attempt at getting on centerline. Yes, it's based around pilots who prefer to do short haul flights numerous times within a sitting at the computer, rather than say 6-7 hour international flights. I personally get more enjoyment from doing short 45 to 1 minute to 1 hour flights than sitting for hours waiting for something transatlantic to finish. A couple of days ago I did actually do Toronto to Manchester, and it was a very long flight. I reminded myself of how unfit I am for long haul service, as it were. The livery, as you can see here, is slightly different to what GEO uses on a regular basis. This livery was designed before the actual concept of the domestic subsidiary came about. I painted the livery and then thought, I need to do something with it. The airline's called BlueSkies. It's powered by GEO, the fuselage, pretty much everywhere really. Sort of a two-tone blue livery. You'll see on the tail that they have a range of English place names there. I primarily did that to get the thrill of it being a domestic airline, to be honest. The livery, you know, it stands out from being different to what we use normally. These two go in. I prefer the longer run. Yeah, the livery is designed differently to the main GEO livery so that it stands out, easily recognisable. Currently only applied to the Airbus A319, but there are plans to adapt it and apply it to the Boeing 737. You'll have to forgive my frame rates, they appear to be a bit up and down now and again. That's just video editing software. Usually I can run Flight Sim 9 at around sort of 80 frames per second, which is very handy for me. I can't really say the same for anyone else. So yes, you'll have to forgive the slight lack of frames again. I think it handles quite well. Externally, it doesn't seem to be that much lag. We'll see how it goes. The sunlight's nicely catching the aircraft this evening. So tonight we're flying to London Heathrow as a sort of a demonstration of the airline and the aircraft. Later on in the flight we'll talk about why we've decided to set up this YouTube channel, what we hope to bring to you as the viewer, and hopefully, if my job is done properly, future pilots. We are constantly looking for new recruits. We don't have a low amount of numbers. We just want as many people flying for us as possible. That is primarily our main aim. We will provide you with the aircraft. There is ongoing works to fulfill the repaint list. Boeing's easy enough to do. There are plenty of paint kits available for Boeing's. Airbus is, on the other hand, a little bit difficult, but I'm slowly working my way around that. We will now allow us to. There we go. Ignore the call sign within the air traffic control. I've literally just got this set up so that I can fly straight away, bomb it down to Heathrow, attack it. So we're just waiting for a MD-8 to vacate the runway, taking off to somewhere that I'm not going to. Any time today would be nice. Tonight I have booked this flight using the standard schedule booking that is available to all pilots at GEO Airlines.co.uk. Through that I'm then able to log into our dedicated ACARS system, our flight recorder. Oh good, I have clearance. Yes, I'm able to log this flight in our dedicated ACARS flight recorder. I'm able to import the flight of which I've booked. And then from there, actually just connect ACARS to Flight Sim and start the flight and we're good to go. So the ACARS is handling that obviously. The current flight time is around 10 minutes, actual departure time is 19:54. Pretty good. I estimate this flight should take somewhere in the region of around 35 to 45 minutes. It's a very short hop down to Heathrow. It's only 131 nautical miles as the crow flies. It's a route of which I'm very handy on. I've flown it a number of times daily, in fact. I have no issues flying this route whatsoever. Clearance. Just be quiet. Take off. I must admit, the sound set of which I'm using is a freeware sound set, as is everything that I use for GEO Airlines. Every panel that I use is freeware, every sound set, every model, every paint kit. I try and avoid using payware items. Talk a little bit more about that once I get in the air. ACARS has recognised that we're now taking off, which is good. Taking off with 123 passengers on board. Fuel is good, clock is set, autopilot is ready. 150. We're okay. There we go. Simple as that. tower. Yep. Bye bye. Pretty good. So technically we are now climbing, as if you weren't already aware as to how flight sim works. Majority of my flight is now done on the autopilot, I must admit, but it does, however, give me a very good opportunity to actually talk a few things out there. Altitude for this flight has been set at flight level 190. A lot of people say that's quite low. Personally, I think it's a good height. It doesn't take too long to achieve in the climbing phase. Descent-wise, it makes it a little bit easy for you. You're not having to try and rapidly slow down. Like you would if you're at 25,000 perhaps. Giving clearance to 15,000, which is lovely. I presume once I get to around 15,000, I will then be told by the air traffic to climb to 19,000, and after that I'll run down the engines a little bit, and then we'll have more of a chat. Shouldn't take too long. Cruise for me usually lasts somewhere in the region of about 7 to 8 minutes on this particular flight. A steady speed of 290 knots, indicated airspeed, that's roughly sort of 300 ground speed. 2,000 feet per minute, doesn't put too much stress on the engines. Nice gentle climb. If I'm really tanking it out of the airports, I'll go for maybe 2,500, maybe even 3,000. Depends on how high I've set the auto throttle. Usually I fly within sort of a 320 knots bracket, quite fast, nearly as fast as the virtual airframe will allow. Doesn't bother me too much, so long as I'm not overspeeding. My A-cars isn't going mental at me, I'm perfectly happy. So, as already mentioned, the aircraft that we're using tonight is a Project Airbus A319. The reason I've gone for the Airbus in this instance, I'm a huge fan of Airbus. Anyone that knows me personally will know that I'm a die-hard Airbus fan. I do have some taste for certain Boeings, but it is quite limited. There has to be a lot of justification for me to like a Boeing, it must be said. So, majority of my flights through GEO Airlines are all done on Airbus A320 family. I like to consider myself being the chief A320 pilot. Bit of a laugh, I know, considering that I have nowhere near as many hours as, say, the other three directors, which we'll come on to shortly, or anyone else on the VA for that matter. There are a number of people that have thousands, nearly, of hours, which compared to my near 50 is quite feeble. The aircraft is of a good standard. The model is superb to look at. As you can see, the shape is near enough bang on. Very nice aircraft to fly. I have autopilot instructions. 5.5. Look at that. Yes, it's a very nice model to fly. It's a good stable model, handles pretty much anything you can throw at it. It is a freeware aircraft. It's available for both FS9 and FSX, which are our core simulators. Majority of our pilots like to use FSX. Personally, I prefer FS9. It's what I grew up with. It's what I've got the more fond memories of flight sim. Not only that, I find FS9 to be a lot more rugged, a lot more stable. It takes quite a lot to break FS9 in my opinion, whereas with FSX it can be a little bit unstable, which is not ideal. One of our pilots recently was doing a 17-hour flight in the new PMDG 777, and after 15 hours and then deciding to move his viewpoint, FSX then came up with a fatal error, meaning that his flight sim crashed, he lost his progress on the ACARS, and it was practically game over for him. That's something of which I'm not entirely comfortable with, so I use FS9. All our pilots are able to use the ACARS with FS9 or FSX. That's not a problem. And the same for our FSN software, the multiplayer software. 4 nautical miles to go on this flight, which is not too bad. So what is GEO Airlines? GEO Airlines is a virtual airline that was founded by 3 dedicated virtual pilots who have somewhere in the region of sort of 25 years combined experience in flight sim. I joined on the basis that I'm very good friends with one of the directors, and since my joining I've become very good friends with the other 2 directors, which is good. It was set up primarily to be the friendliest virtual airline possible, with a wide range of schedules, the ability to fly with any aircraft, any flight. GEO Airlines, we operate tour systems, so say for example 20-leg tours around Africa perhaps. Not a problem for us. You know, if someone's got an idea for a tour, we can take those ideas down, get them inputted into the system, and then for each flight that you end up doing on that tour, they can get logged and tracked. Actually, you build your hours up. Pilots are able to fly alongside VATSIM servers, something of which I've not quite experimented with yet, although I do intend to at some point. So the 3 other directors are Glenn, Ernie and Ollie, which is how the name GEO came about, because obviously their names begin with the 3 letters that form the word GEO. When I came on board primarily to reskin aircraft, GEO worked perfectly well for me, because it gave me an idea of what I could play about with the livery. The initial idea was triangles and very straight lines, which does work, and there's a reason why that livery has evolved slightly and also completely changed for this kind of thing, the domestic side of things. I wanted the domestic side of things to look completely different but still work alongside the existing airline, which the other 3 directors were perfectly happy with. It's on a probationary period at the minute, subject to the amount of hours flown, the amount of people that are willing to join and fly the schedules. Part of my job as being social media, not supervisor, but sort of just generally in charge of it, was to, well, initially it started with a Facebook page, of which has gone through a number of changes since the social media side of things started for the airline. We then decided to go for a Twitter account so that we can try and network with other virtual pilots that might not necessarily use Facebook as much as other people, get in touch with real airlines, virtual airlines, aircraft manufacturers. That was all very good. Personally, I felt there was one thing missing that we could do that would spread our name, the GEO name, even further than it already was, and that's through video. A lot of pilots use video recording software to record their flights. There's a very good friend of mine who's on YouTube by the name of F.O. Hemming. He frequently uploads videos, mostly in the 777 at the minute, which I'll need to be having words with him about. But you know, pilots do upload videos to YouTube, and I felt that it was something that GEO were maybe missing. And as such, the YouTube channel got started, and this is obviously the first video. We intend to use this this social media platform as a means to connect with people on more than just what they can see on a screen. We would actually like to envisage that, you know, if, say for example with this flight, we would like to think that people that are watching this video and then become part of the flight, you know, as if they're on the aircraft. It's not just chats like this we would be having, or flights like this. You know, there's nothing to say that we couldn't have the likes of interviews with other staff members or the other directors, have multiplayer footage, press releases, so new aircraft coming out or revised schedules. These are all things of which all four of the directors have considered, taken on board and gone, well, we need to do something about this, and we have. So that's what you can expect from the channel. Occasional flying, a lot of showing off of new liveries. The 767s are currently awaiting packaging prior to upload, which shouldn't be too bad. The next aircraft on the list is probably going to be a Boeing 787, the Dreamliner, both in the -8 and -9 configurations, because our paint kit's available for both. As said, all our aircraft are freeware. You don't have to have any payware aircraft like PNDG or Captain Sim or Quality Wings. You don't need any of that. All you need is a computer, willingness to fly, and a good sense of community. That's all we're looking for in our pilots. We don't demand that you fly a certain amount of hours per month or a certain amount of flights per month. We'd like to think that you would log at least one flight per month minimum, but it's not a rule of which we're constantly enforcing. There was a huge period where I wasn't logging any flights at all. I was barely even flying, let alone logging flights. But it wasn't an issue. As soon as I got back into the flight sim, I started banging the hours in. They just build up and build up. We're not using any form of type rating system. If you want to fly an aircraft, that's fine. You can pick whatever you like to do the flight. The ACARS system will recognise the aircraft that's been put into the schedule for that flight, which gradually will be changing. There are only 2 or 3 aircraft in that actual schedule list. There's obviously more aircraft come out of the paintworks and they're beginning to get loaded. That'll obviously be changing. So, you know, the choice is indefinitely yours as to what you fly and where you fly to. The longer range schedules are fine for the people that like plugging in FMCs and letting it get on with it. And then again, there's always the Blue Skies operation that we set up for pilots that prefer a shorter flight. The actual structure of Blue Skies is relatively simple. We have one main hub, which is Manchester Airport. From there we're flying to 8 key, I use in inverted commas, destinations throughout the United Kingdom. We have Newquay, Jersey, Dublin, Belfast, Glasgow, Aberdeen, Edinburgh, and London Heathrow. London Heathrow is the shortest flight, measures in at around 131 nautical miles, which is fine for me, perfectly fine for me, I don't have a problem with that. The other flights sit nicely in a bracket between sort of 170 to 250 nautical miles. From Manchester, none of them should really take longer than 1 hour, which is exactly the kind of thing that we were looking for. From where we are now, that being early days for GEO BlueSkies, we do intend to open another hub, possibly in London, possibly in Glasgow, or Edinburgh for that matter, one of the bigger airports. We haven't quite decided yet. There are a lot of destinations that we could still fly to that don't necessarily need to be covered by an airport in the northwest. So for example, you wouldn't have a Manchester to Liverpool flight, because as soon as you're in the air you're near enough due to go back down on the ground. See if we can't get in on that tail a bit better. There we go. There's a good demonstration of all the UK place names that are on the tail. Manchester, London, Swansea, Canterbury. Not sure how clear that will come out in the video. The registration for the aircraft is G-Oscar Bravo Sierra Alpha. Golf obviously being the United Kingdom registration prefix, Oscar and GEO kind of fills in the gap, the airline name, Bravo Sierra for Blue Skies, and then Alpha because this is the first aircraft that's been produced in this livery. The Boeing 737 that should eventually receive the Blue Skies treatment should in theory be Golf-Oscar Bravo Sierra Bravo. You'll notice that on towards the nose of the aircraft there are 3 letters MDS. That will be explained in a different video, I think. So we're plodding along nicely at 9,000 feet, 260 knots, moving rather well. We have 43 nautical miles left. I think it's 3 o'clock. That means he's to mile 9. Alright, bear with. He's well low. If you're interested in joining GEO Airlines, the website link is www.geoairlines.co.uk. As said, you can register with your VATSIM user number, that's not a problem. From there, we would advise you to install the ACAR system, which requires logging in with the pilot ID that you will then be allocated after your application to the airline. We also have a FSN server which is there to facilitate multiplayer flying. Another instruction. So we also have an FSN server that allows us to do multiplayer flying, which comes in good stead for the tours like I was discussing earlier. one of our partner airline, well, the only partner airline at the minute, British Virgin UK, are embarking on a world tour, or at least a Northern Hemisphere tour. And you know, there are 14, 15 pilots that are all registered to do this tour. I myself am one of them. And there's nothing really quite like seeing 7, 8, 9 aircraft all in the sky roughly around the same sort of time, all headed the same way. Definitely comes quite fun when you're all trying to land at the same airport as well. There are slight problems with FSN which are beyond our control, like the ability to exactly see the other person's aircraft. Unless you specifically have the model of aircraft and the livery, I believe, that someone else is flying, you won't be able to view their individual aircraft. Instead, what the FSN will do is substitute it for one of your own, which I'm fine with. For me, it's not a case of being able to see what everyone else is flying, it's more just being able to see them in the sim. As well as the world tour flights that we do and we track on Aircars and FSN, we also do what one of our directors likes to call prop hopping, which is taking smaller aircraft in between airports that aren't very far apart but are still worthy of being tracked as logged flights. These help us build our PIREPS numbers up and slowly allow us to climb the rankings on VA Central. Our ranking on VA Central currently is around sort of 83, 84, I would have to double check that. It's been a slow but steady climb to get to where we are now. All 4 of the directors feel that there is a lot more work to be done. I personally believe there's a lot more work to be done to get us where my vision of where I would like us to be. I would like us to be one of the most popular VAs there are, which is quite a bold statement, I know, but through hard work and dedication, I'm sure we'll manage it. Just keeping an eye on my airspeed as we start to descend for Heathrow. We are 23.5 nautical miles away from the runway now. We're looking at a 09 left approach and landing at Heathrow using ILS. My usual landing procedure involves flying it on the ILS till around about 500 feet above. From there I'll disconnect the auto throttle and try and get it on the ground as smoothly as possible. Doesn't necessarily always go to plan, especially when you look at some of my landing rates, but that's neither here nor there. It's very rare that anyone's pirate is rejected at GEO. We believe that every pilot has their own level of integrity, and if they feel that a flight that they have done is in some manner invalid, then it's up to them to file it. All we can do is question what they've done. If we're in agreement, so we understand why, it's fine. We'll have a proper chat, work out what's going on. It's not too strict. Quite a friendly environment, especially on the TeamSpeak server. The TeamSpeak server, which by the way further reinforces our community spirit, at least that's my viewpoint anyway. It's always good when you have a range of pilots on there discussing things both in the sim or to do with the airline. Turn left at 25. Yes, the TeamSpeak server is always good. Plenty of laughs to be had, especially on tour nights. Just fiddle about with the autopilot now. Can't quite see the airport at the minute, then again it is 18 miles away. The server details for the TeamSpeak server are available on the GEO Airlines website. we prefer pilots to use a set syntax of how their nickname is displayed in the GEO Airlines TeamSpeak server. It keeps everything nice and uniform. So for example, if you don't know someone's name but you do know their pilot number, it's easier to find people that way. Just engaged the approach mode on the autopilot, somewhere around the sort of 14 to 13 nautical mile mark. It will locate the ILS and steer the aircraft towards the runway. Like I say, my apologies that my flying in the sim is quite crude compared to more rather serious pilots. It doesn't bother me. I like how I fly. At the end of the day, I'm still logging the hours. Aircraft is handling nicely this evening. I decided to go with a sort of evening feel for this video. Give it a bit more of a relaxed feel. Cloud cover is quite good. We're obviously now below the cloud base. I think the cloud base was somewhere around the sort of 6,000 mark. Maybe a bit lower than that. Maybe even a bit higher than that. I can't quite remember. I've not set the weather to anything too advanced. I just set it to user-defined, quite a broken cloud pattern on. There's no real wind. The wind is supposedly at 5 degrees, but there isn't any wind speed, so you shouldn't encounter too many problems with a crosswind landing. And obviously it's not raining as well. Arm the spoilers. Yeah, this view we can just about work out Heathrow. I think that's it. Yes, the heading light on the autopilot is now extinguished. Just over to our left there, and we're beginning the turn now. It's the full. Auto throttle to 177. 175. It says. Let's turn on the landing lights now. As we can see, we're at 2,500, 180 knots currently, there or nearabouts. The ILS is lining up nicely. We should just about latch onto the glide slope any minute now. Flaps are full, spoilers are armed. Now is wait for clearance to land. There we are. Patterns are coming up nicely, and the scenery has just loaded. The frames might take a bit of a dip right now. Get down. We're slightly above the glide slope at the minute. Too much of an issue, I don't think. And we now have landing clearance. This is the particular view that I like to adopt when I'm landing. It gives me a bit more control of the flare of the aircraft as we get closer to the ground, so you'll see me flicking in between the two views, that being the spot view and the cockpit view, quite frequently in the next couple of minutes. Tower view. And they went and pressed the wrong button, didn't they? So like I said, roughly around sort of 500 feet I start to disconnect the autopilot. Usually disconnect the auto throttle about now. Try and keep it steady. Glide slope's looking good. white on red. .500 above, autopilot can come off, where I in myself, slowly decrease the throttle. Not a bad landing, right? And there we are. Just taxi to the nearest gate. And then that will be us done. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to London Heathrow. Thank you for joining me on this flight. I hope the video has been enjoyable by some manner. If it's not, then I can only apologise. Please do keep tuned in. We hope to bring you a lot on this YouTube channel. The aircraft, although now being sort of within its 6 months, is still growing, and we hope to keep that growth. Thank you very much for joining me yet again, and I shall see you all next video.